There comes a time in every successful career woman's life where something happens, regardless of how much she loves her work, where she asks herself this one specific question, and that is it worth it? And usually that happens because something in their life shows up where they have to make an incredible and unimaginable decision that really puts the matter like right square in front of them. For me, that was the birth of my fourth child. You see, I had my own company. I had a boutique training company. We trained Fortune 500 companies, we trained small companies, we trained law firms, we trained municipalities. And it was anything pretty much HR related, which meant that it could be computer training, it could be how to use a system, it could be leadership training, like whatever kind of training they needed, we offered that. Now, here was the problem with that business. It was very dependent upon me. So in other words, even though we had multiple clients, and we did, and even though we had our own office in like an A-class building, which we did, and even though we had a staff, which we did, the business actually turned into something that was very, very tied to my personality. And as the market started to change in Metro Detroit, and the car companies were all going through a huge downsizing and government bailouts and all that kind of stuff, we began to not have our invoices paid because while they were all declaring bankruptcy and getting funding from the government, they were not actually paying their vendors. Now, right around that time, we had our fourth child, which should have been the most incredible honestly, the most incredible happy moment in our life. And something happened during the birth where I was hospitalized for an additional 10 days. I had actually contracted a infection. I had cellulitis, which is a skin infection, and it started in my foot. And I remember looking and thinking to myself, there's something going on here. This actually isn't okay. And I had to go back to the hospital and find out what was going on with this infection. Lo and behold, they decided, hey, we're going to make you stay because we now have to give you IV antibiotics, which is this crazy little process, in case you are not in the medical profession, where they just kind of try various antibiotics to see which ones work. And it's a very scientific thing where they take a ballpoint pen and they write a line across your leg and they date it and they look to see if the infection actually crosses the line. So here I am, admitted to the hospital with a baby that's probably about 4 days old. Now, of course, the baby can't stay. So I'm in the hospital. I am trying to find, with the doctors, they're trying to find the right antibiotic. I am watching this infection move further and further up my leg. My husband is dragging a newborn baby into like the infectious disease part of the hospital to be nursed. And I have 3 other small children at home who my neighbors and family are now feeding. So needless to say, it was a pretty stressful time. And honestly and truly, you don't stay in a hospital anymore. And even back then, you didn't stay in a hospital unless you were really needing to stay in the hospital. I was there for 10 days. And there was a point in time that I remember being so frustrated about the situation, about the fact that we couldn't find an antibiotic that seemed to be working. And you would think that a person would be majorly concerned about their health. But no, I was actually thinking to myself, I got to get out of here because I'm not billable laying here in bed. It was like the Clue Fairy showed up in the middle of the night with a big, huge rubber mallet and hit me on the head and was like, something's gotta change. But here's the thing that people don't tell you. You can know that things need to change and not know how to change them, because your life is so intertwined with the way that you've set things up that you have absolutely no idea what the first step is out of the hornet's nest. One that we had created, because my husband was a stay-at-home dad. He was homeschooling our children. It was a decision that we made, and I was involved in running the business, and he was also helping on the side, but his primary concern was educating our children and raising our children. So I remember that moment distinctly where I thought, man, we've screwed this up. Like, we have screwed this up. I am in a situation where my health is in jeopardy. And instead of thinking about how to get better, I'm thinking about how I'm not billable. Something is wrong here. And I'm telling you this because I was making a six-figure income. I was driving a nice car. We lived in a nice neighborhood. And in a million years, if you had said, here's all the things that you need to do, my thought was, we got to upset the apple cart and he's got to go back to work. He's got to find something because we can't live this way any further. What I want you to understand is when a woman gets to that place, what she's looking for is help. But she's looking for help from a limited capacity. Like in my head, my reference point was corporate or having your own job or your own business, which a business that, by the way, took like almost a decade to build to get to the point that I was at. So starting something new wasn't really what I was looking for. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I am just going to have to tell him when he comes next time with my brand new baby that like he's going to have to go back to work. He's going to have to start looking for a job. So what had happened was I had been going to these professional networking meetings, and there was a woman there who actually was part of a network marketing company, and I ignored her like the plague. And I mean like the plague. If I went to the coffee station and she followed me over there, I suddenly wasn't interested in coffee. I tried to sit on the opposite side of the room from her. I had zero respect for network marketers of any kind. And I had zero respect, honestly, for her. Now, I'm not proud of that now. Then I was, because I was an arrogant little. And so I was like, you know what? She's cute and everything. And she comes to our little business networking meetings with her little branded satchel and her little skincare products. And she acts like we're all really interested in this. And it's just so cute. But like, I run like a legitimate business and I literally wanted nothing to do with her. So the way that it works in those meetings is you're supposed to have little dates with people and get to know them and all that kind of good stuff. And so the women in that group, we all started to get to know each other. And I got an invitation one day to the realtor. Every group has a realtor. I had been invited to her housewarming party because she just bought a new condo. And she came up to me and said, listen, a few of us are getting together. We're going to go, I'm going to have a housewarming party. I'd love to invite you to come over and see the new condo. And a few of us will be there. And I thought, great, networking opportunity. Let me go to this thing. So on the way to her event, I stopped, got a housewarming gift, which was a very nice bottle of wine. And I remember parking on the sidewalk and pulling up with my bag and my little gift and you know, walking up to the door and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so cute. And then I ring the doorbell and I look in the side lights, because you know how you do that. Ring the door, look in the side lights, and I could see straight through to her kitchen where the network marketing woman had set up her stuff. And I immediately thought to myself, it's one of those. Oh my gosh. Now, if I hadn't actually rang the doorbell, I legit would have run. Like legit. I would have been like, I don't care. I'm out of here. You're not like bamboozling me. So I hear her start to walk toward the door. And all I could think to myself is, if I'm going to watch one of these presentations, I am going to do it good and liquored up. And I took my little bottle of wine out of the bag. I folded up my gift bag and I tucked it in my purse. And when she opened the door, I was like, let's have some wine. And as she opened the door, she looked at me and said, yeah, Debbie brought some stuff with her and I told her she could lay it out. And, like, what am I going to say at that point? I mean, I had a million things I wanted to say, but what was I legitimately going to say? So I came into the kitchen and the first thing that she did was, she brings you over to the sink and she's like, oh my gosh, you have to try these sea salt scrubs. It's just amazing. And, we're going to put it on your hands and scrub and you're just going to love the way your hands feel. As if really what I was looking for today was a hand moisturizer. Like, of all the things that I had going on in my life, like needing to find a new way to create income, having just been in the hospital for 10 days, like the first thing on my mind was not, you know what I need? I need some hand salts. I need some luxury items for my hands. But I went along with it. And I washed my hands and I'm like, oh, this is nice. And I smiled and I washed my hands, dried my hands off. And then she goes, it's aromatherapy. Smell it. And so I put my hands in my face and I took in a really deep breath. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And it smelled like lavender. It was so good. And my hands honestly had never been softer in my entire life, but still slightly aggravated. I poured a glass of wine, sat down on the couch, and I listened to her little presentation. Now, I will tell you, the entire time I was listening to the presentation, I couldn't stop smelling my hands. This product, by the way, was called Unwind. Unwind. So do not think that the irony escapes me that this totally wound up, crazy, overworked woman, career woman, is completely infatuated with a product called Unwind. And at the end of the presentation, you know how it goes. It's like, hey, and if you'll host a little shindig at your house, and then she holds up that little bottle of like hand stuff, and she's like, you'll get this for free. Now, free just happens to be one of my favorite F words. And again, do not think the irony escapes me. Woman making great money, good career, great car, and the $26 an item, the $26 bottle of sea salt scrub was the thing that was good enough to make me want to have my friends over. But I thought, I'm going to do it because I want that and I don't want to have to pay for it. So I went up and I told Debbie, listen, I'm not going to order anything tonight, but I will host something for you, which when you're having one of those parties is as good as an order because it leads to other orders. So I set up the date. She came to my house and I invited like every person I knew. And I told every one of them they did not have to buy a damn thing because all I was doing it for was the sea salt scrubs. Quality lead right here, ladies and gentlemen. So she comes to my house. Only two of my friends show up because, of course, I didn't bother to confirm anybody. I just sent out invitations and thought, I just want my stinking sea salt scrubs. So two friends came. Everybody has two friends. You have those two friends that are going to like bail you out of jail, help you bury a body, all the things. Those two friends, they came. And as we sat there and listened to the presentation, and it was all about like, hey, not having toxic stuff in your products and et cetera, everybody became super enamored with the skincare. Now, can I tell you, your girl was watching her face with like Ivory soap. Like I didn't believe in like 16 products to make your skin look good. I was so young at the time. I was like, listen, Linda, Noxzema is what my mom used. So that was good enough for Camille. It was good enough for me. So I wasn't even like an ideal client, but apparently my friends were because they started to pull out their checkbooks and write checks for like $100 and some dollars, like almost $200 for this entire skincare system. And I remember looking at both of them really wide-eyed and being like, hey, you don't have to buy anything. Like it's actually, I'm just doing it for like the free sea salt scrubs. And my one friend said, now this, my one friend, Susie, and Susie, if you're listening to this, you know I love you dearly, but you know, we went through the time where we would go out to dinner and you would be like, I have a side salad and dinner rolls. Like I never saw Susie spend money, especially on food, because she was like, I don't like spending money on food. Like I just don't want to waste my money that way eating out. So whenever we went out, group of girls, we're all out having a good time, ordering meals, and Susie's like, I'll have a side salad and I'll have the dinner roll. She's writing a check for the entire system. I think it was more than I ever saw her write a check for in like the entire time we had been friends. And then my other friend does the same thing. And I'm like, now hang on a minute. What is happening here? Why is everybody buying this? So I didn't care. I was going to get my free sea salt scrubs, and that was that. So she rounds out the party. We sit down, and she says, because this is the way it worked back then, it was, listen, here's the deal. You get a free sea salt scrub. That's great. And you also happen to get these rewards because your party totaled this crazy amount of money. And she said, and I heard it in slow motion. If you wanted to do this as a business, you already have a couple of customers. I mean, your friends will want to reorder. And of course, you could get the commission on those orders. And I was like, hell no. Thank you very much. Hell no. But then she said, and of course, anything extra that you order, you're going to get at 35% off. And next to free, I love a discount. So I was like, all right, well, what's involved? Now listen, snotty pants here, total snotty pants. I was like, well, what's involved? She goes, well, we'll sign you up as like a consultant. You don't have to sell anything, but here's the deal. You'll always get your products at 35% off. I'll have everything delivered here. And then you just give the stuff to your friends. And I thought, okay. But then I literally read this woman the riot act. I was like, all right, I'm going to sign up, but here are my rules. I'm never selling this ever. So I don't want to hear about the specials. I don't want you calling me at the end of the month. I know I should do what you do. Every single rep in the whole entire world has cornered me at one of these parties and said, you know, you got a great personality. You know how to sell. You should do what I do. Every one of them. Like, I'm not going to do what you do. If you knew what I thought about what you do, you would be very, very hard pressed to think that I would ever do it. Because in my head, these women didn't make money. In my head, this wasn't a profession. In my head, it was a little extra bunka money for very wealthy women. So this was not a viable business from my standpoint. So I continue to tell her, I don't want to hear from you at the end of the month. I don't want signs in my yard. I don't care if you're up for a new promotion. Do not ever call me. Like basically so rude, but that was me. So anywho, I sign up and I'm like, great, I'm going to get my products at a discount. And the only product that I had tried was the stinking sea salt scrub. That was it. Now I got a bunch of free stuff as a result of having my friends over. And so I was going to start using the products. And I thought, well, if I wanted to reorder anything, certainly getting it at 35% off would be incredible. And then I thought, and then I wouldn't have to order through you if I wanted it. And so that's even a bonus. So ideal client? No. Ideal business owner? Not from my perspective, but we will talk about that in a minute. So then what begins to happen is my friend, the salad girl, the salad and roll girl, starts to come over to my house with random checks from people I don't even know. And she's like, listen, you know how you have that account? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, guess what? A friend of mine wants to order the same system. And so you have the account, you place the order. So I was like, oh, all right. So I took her check, I placed the order, and I made like $50. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, thanks, Susie. So ordered that. Then the next day she comes over again with another check. And she's like, I have another friend. She wants some stuff too. And so here's her order, here's her name, here's her address. Just place the order for her. And I'm like, okay, didn't even think twice about it. Now, about the sixth time that she comes over with a check, and I still have these visions of someone like knocking on my back door, because that's where the driveway was, knocking on my back door, waving a little check in her hand, like, hey, here's another friend. She really wants this. Well, right around that time, I said, listen, Susie, you should just get your own account and you should place these orders for these people. Because so far, based on your orders, I've made like over $100 from your referrals. This could be your money. And by the way, how are you selling this? You don't even have stuff to show them. And she's like, oh, I'm talking it up in like the car line at school. When I go to pick up the kids, I'm talking it up. And I'm like cracking up. I'm like, so basically you're selling it out of the trunk of your car? Is that what you're telling me? And she's like, no, I'm not selling it. And I'm like, aren't you though? She's like, no, I'm not selling it. And I'm like, but maybe you are. And she's like, I'm not selling it. You should sell it. And I'm like, I'm not going to sell it. You sell it. And she's like, I'm not selling it. I don't want to do anything like this. And I'm like, but you are. You are doing it. You are selling it. It is your word of mouth. Like all you have to do is get the account and then you would be making this money. And then we kind of both looked at each other. And I think we had the exact same thought at the exact same time. And then I finally said, but no, really, what if we did sell it? Like, what if we teamed up and we made some extra money and we just had some fun and you could buy more than a dinner salad and a roll when we went out to dinner? What if we like just gave it a try? So it was then that we both decided that we would, quote unquote, give it a try. So imagine my humiliation when I had to call Debbie and tell her I needed to know how to sell it. Now, I had rules for that too. I literally said, listen, I'm signing my friend up. She's going to sell it. I might sell it. I mean, you keep saying this stuff sells itself. There's some evidence that maybe that's true. But listen, I'm not going to like hustle to sell this. And I'm not going to, like, if it sells itself, it sells itself. Like, I'm not going to go out there and promote this thing. If somebody happens to ask me, I'd be happy to give it to them, but I'm definitely not selling this stuff until you start selling it. Like, literally, until you start getting results and people start going like, oh my gosh, what's going on with your skin? Or you start saying things to people like, don't put that on your baby. Do you know what's in that? Like, can I tell you about what's in that stuff? And then you just literally start to figure out that like, oh my gosh, the way this works is the way everything works in life. You have something really cool that you enjoy and love, and you share it with somebody else and you let them decide. Like we do this all the time. I thought to myself, how many times did I buy something at TJ Maxx, which by the way, this became my endless TJ Maxx fund. And I'm so excited about my discount. And somebody goes, oh, that's a pretty outfit. And I go, oh, $20, TJ Maxx, right? You never tell, like, it's always like, I just want you to know, got it on a discount and you can too. Like that was what was really clear to me. I'm like, okay, so this is how this works. This is how this works. You're basically just referring people to whatever. And I just began to have a lot of fun with it. I had extra TJ Maxx money that let me shop there without telling my husband about that money and have it come out of the budget and all the things. And I thought like people were inviting me over to have wine and cheese and tell their friends what I knew about it, which was like, you don't want to slather toxic junk on your skin. So Susie and I began to have fun. And then we both promoted to like the first level because we had enough interest that people were like, oh my gosh, and they were buying from us. And it was really, really fun. Again, nothing monumental. It was just that it fit into what I was doing and I was having a lot of fun doing it. So what had happened was Debbie called me against my will. She called me and said, listen, there's a little training event in town and it's all day and it's at a country club, and you'll get to come and you can just kind of see, what some other women are doing with this as a business. And I want you to come and be my guest. Now, one of the fun things about Debbie at that point was anytime we met, and we did become a little closer, so we would have coffee and whatever, she'd always bring me something like wrapped in cellophane. And it was never anything amazing. It was always something small, but it was always fun to have somebody kind of like, hey, thanks for meeting with me. I brought you a little something. I'm like, listen, I was folding laundry, cooking, nursing babies, and nobody was wrapping a damn thing in cellophane for me. So I just really enjoyed that little tiny bit of acknowledgement. So I go to this event, and it's at a country club, and it's beautiful. I mean, I remember walking up and thinking, like, I haven't had a meal without a child in my lap or on my boob in about like 6 months. And I sat down to eat lunch, and they had like chargers, and they were gold. And I got to drink my iced tea without a kid on my body. And it was in this beautiful lead crystal glass. And I was having adult conversations. And I was like, oh my gosh, this could only be better if it was outside. I mean, this is just so amazing. So I went in, and what I forgot to tell you was I was so underdressed for this event. It wasn't even funny, because my perspective of this was that there were going to be a bunch of housewives showing up with like kids hanging off their laps and strollers. And they were going to be dressed like with stains on their clothes and like wearing the most benign clothing. And I went in like athletic wear, because that was like, I thought, well, I'm not going to dress up. I dress up every day of the week. I'm going to go in casual clothes. And I was so embarrassed when I walked in, because every one of these women were clearly taking this very seriously, which at the time I thought was very cute. I was like, oh, look at these cute women. I mean, like, first of all, I'm a little bit of a fashion person. So I was like, oh, okay. We are wearing the wrong clothes. So I sat in the back, but they looked really cute. And they were really dedicated. They had full hair done, makeup, everything. Like, I had a ponytail. I was like, oh my gosh. And so something then told me like, this is interesting. Like, this feels different. It feels interesting. This felt a little bit like I was used to in the corporate world. But as I was sitting there, these women just started like helping each other, and helping each other get ahead, and helping each other build businesses, and giving them tips. And oh, I have something for that. And it was like handout after handout after handout, tip after tip. Now that was really shocking to me, because I'm a girl who's from like cutthroat corporate America, like toxic people, nobody, like elbow your way to the top kind of, environment. And when people started freely helping each other out, that was another thing that I thought, wow, that's interesting. And then I began to listen to the speakers, one after the other. I listened to a nurse get up there and talk about how, oh my gosh, she was a nurse. She worked a gazillion hours. She was tired. She was older. She was getting ready to retire. All she wanted was to be able to have a job that she loved, that could actually help her live the kind of life she wanted to live, while still helping people and being a success from a career standpoint. Okay. Then I listened to another woman get up who had recently been divorced, and she was like an athletic coach, a swim coach or something of that nature. And she gets up and starts talking about, like, I've been doing this for a while now. And she had actually been doing it for like 13 years or something of that nature. And then she blurts out how much money she's made over like the last 13 years. Now, this was 20 some years ago. And I remember hearing her say, now I've been in for 13 years. It's allowed me to like be with my twin daughters and have an amazing lifestyle. We have a cottage in Wisconsin. We live in Arizona. My daughters and I have the life that we want, regardless of like not being married and not expecting to not be married. And then she says, in the last 10 years or whatever, she's like, I've made $13 million. And I was like, stop. What? What? Come on. Selling skincare? Are you kidding me? And then I listened to another woman get up and talk about like, you know what? I wanted to help my husband and help out a little bit more. And, I just wanted to free him up mentally from the burden of being the only income earner. And she talks about like her 6-figure income. And then another woman gets up and it's like, and by the way, none of them, I'm telling you from my perspective. Okay. So I'm not proud to say this on the internet, but I was like, none of them were the sharpest crayons in the box. Like none of them. And all I kept thinking was, damn, how can you not be the brightest bulb in the chandelier and make this kind of money? And I am working my hiney off, working in excess of 60 hours a week to make my 6-figure income. And you all are drinking iced tea out of lead glass crystal, charger plates, Caesar salads on the most beautiful property ever. And I'm barely getting lunch and you like each other and you're having fun. And I immediately thought, wait, what? And I turned to the woman who brought me. Her name was Debbie. I turned to her and I said, Debbie, what do you make? Now, Debbie immediately went into apology and shame mode. She was like, well, I haven't been doing it really regularly or seriously for a really long time. I go, yeah, but like, what are you making? She goes, like compared to you, I'm not working as much as you are. And I'm like, Debbie, give me a number, spit it out. And she goes, I work about 8 hours a week and I make like $40,000 a year. And she literally said it with this huge, like, shame energy. And all I could think was, you are working 8 hours a week and making $40,000 a year? Girl, I'm willing to work 40. I'm willing to work 40. And I was doing the math in my head. I was like, well, she's working 4, she's making 80. And 8 and she's making 40. Sorry. She's working 8 hours and making 40. And I'm willing to work 40 hours a week. I can replace my income. And I looked at her and she looked at me. She goes, I know. It's a little embarrassing. And I looked at her with like this, you do not even know what you are sitting on. And then I started to look around the room and I was like, where are all the corporate girls? Like somebody needs to tell them that there's this whole group. And again, please hear me when I say this, not proud that this was my thought. This whole group of not so smart women making incredible amounts of money, having a lot more fun than we are, and also having time to see their children raise their families and live their family priorities. Someone's got to tell these women. And that became the thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to talk to every career woman out there, and I began to do that. Now, I want to explain something to you. I have since then learned, and I learned very quickly after I got in, that the reason these women looked so unpolished, unsmart, whatever, was because that's the whole deal. It was supposed to look easy enough that anyone would think, I could do that. I mean, if she can do that, I can do that. It was so unpolished. It was so like luxurious. I mean, but it was so authentic and real that like you couldn't help but think she's doing better than me. Like that's the life that I want to have. So I did tell Debbie, I said, listen, I am giving this 6 months. I'm giving it 6 months. And I said, I'm going to test this out. I'm going to see if I actually start to quote unquote follow your system. I'm going to follow your system. And if it works, then I should know in 6 months whether or not this is for me. So I called Susie and I was like, girl, we are upgrading our experience. I just went to this thing and I am telling you, we are working too hard. We need to call every one of our collective corporate friends, have a little huddle and tell them what we know. And we did. So I started to talk to my corporate friends and I started to tell them things like, you are not going to believe what I'm about to do. You are not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. And I began to tell the story of being in this room with all these women, none of whom had degrees, big degrees, none of whom had any business or corporate experience, none of them who had any leadership roles. But yet, how are they making so much more money than we are? And even like that woman that was like, I'm making $13 million. I'm like, wait a minute. I've been in my business for 13 years. Let me see, 10 years. Let me see. Am I making that kind of money? No, not making that kind of money. Not even making that kind of money by a little bit. But if I could even make like a third of that, like I would be so excited. Like I kept thinking to myself, this is a transformational decision right here, right now. What's about to happen is the door has been opened for me to make a transformational decision. Take a small risk. There was no inventory. Take a small risk. There was not a lot to learn. Take a small risk. It did not require me to quit what I was already doing. Take a small risk and transform your life. I was like, I'll give it 6 months. I will give it 6 months. And I will tell you, I failed miserably for the first 6 months. And I did. Why? Because I didn't listen to a dang thing any of them told me to do. Like I made some decent money, but I didn't make like gangster money. I was like, where is the evidence that I can actually make 6-figure income here? I was horrible. I mean, like not horrible. I could go out and bring home like $100 and that was great for like 2 or 3 hours of work. So that's not exactly chump change. But I kept thinking like, well, how do you get a team? Like, where's the big thing? Like these people aren't. And in my head, I legitimately thought, okay, so if like this level I'm trying to get to is $120,000 in volume, I have to sell all of that. Like I didn't understand network marketing at all. So right around month 6, failing miserably, I drove with Debbie to a training, literally, like it was like a 3-hour away training. And I drove to the training and I remember sitting in somebody's living room. Now, I remember her saying how she worked the business. And I remember her explaining that there's a difference between being a salesperson and actually operating a network marketing business. And I remember her talking about the idea here isn't for you to sell so much every single month. The idea is for you to do like there was a standard. It was like, do this many presentations a month. That's what you do. You do this many presentations a month, and then you teach other people to do this many presentations too. And at that time, it was like 6. And so that meant that you were going to be out of your house maybe 1.5 times a week, which I could do. Like I was willing to give up Survivor at the time, my favorite show, to actually see how this worked. So Susie and I and the people that we actually had brought in had committed to like, let's just try this. Let's just try. Let's do what they're actually saying. Like I had to step back from what I knew about corporate world. I had to step back from what I knew about selling, personal selling, to learn this business called network marketing, which was about selling not only to my personal and social network, but my customers' networks and their customers' friends' networks. And that was the whole idea behind this presentation, was that you were introducing me to your network and I would sell and I would ask some of those people, do you want to do this too? Which back then there weren't a lot of choices for women. Like there was no DoorDash, there was no Uber, there were no digital marketing things. And so like it was the thing, unless you wanted to go stand on your feet and maybe be a cashier somewhere, it was a very viable option for people to make some extra money. But I wasn't interested in extra money. I needed to get out of my current financial situation and start creating a backup plan. So I did it. Like I literally was like, okay, I get it. I get it now. And like something finally clicked in my thick skull. This is what you do for a living. This is legitimately what you do. What you do for a profession is you go into companies, you study their processes, you document the best practices, and then you teach it to the entire organization. This is literally what you do for a living. Get on board. So I went to every training within a 4-hour drive of me, of anybody who was making more money than me, even if it was by like $50. If you were making more money than me, you had something that I needed to learn, and I went and studied it. I looked for patterns. I looked for how people were growing. I looked for what worked. I looked for what didn't work. I looked for self-limiting beliefs. I like literally put it all together. And I will tell you, within a 6-month period, I was making some very decent money. And as a matter of fact, the money was so decent that right around that time, it was tax season. And my husband, who was not a fan of spending as much money as we were on healthy shampoo, was like, hey, so question, honey. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I got your little like 1099 from that company. And I'm like, yeah. I go, just having some fun. And he goes, this is what it said you made. And I was like, oh, really? Oh my gosh. Wow. And he goes, yeah. Isn't that interesting? And I go, it's so much fun. And he goes, where is it? Where is it? I'm just curious. Where is this money? And I was like, oh, well, I'm wearing some of it. And we're sitting on some of it because I had started to redecorate the house with the money I was making. And then my daughter happened to walk past, and I was like, she's wearing some of it. And I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, now I have to explain all of this to him. The jig is up. And I remember him, again, in slow motion. Why is everything meaningful in my life in slow motion? I remember him in slow motion saying, what if you actually took this seriously? Now, remember, my big plan was what? That he was going to go and get a job. So immediately I was thinking, woman kills husband, film at 11. Because all I could think was, I'm not like, no. Oh, no. No. But then he actually got out a pencil and paper and he started to say, listen, how much time are you spending on this? And I told him, and he's like, and this is how much money you're making. But then what he actually did was he started to show me how much I was trending up. He was like, so this is where you started a few months ago, and this is the money you're making. So if we actually followed this trend, honey, you could be making serious money, and we could wind down this other thing. And I remember thinking, I hate it when you're right. I mean, seriously, the thought of like, okay, you could go get another job, or we could leverage this thing that's already kind of in momentum. And so I am telling you, and I am not kidding, the more I started to understand that this business was not about selling individually, but selling as a community, creating a community, and more importantly, becoming a leader of leaders. Other women who, like me, wanted to make this a legitimate source of income. And remember, like, I had to work through how to do this in a way that my corporate friends would actually respect. That was like, honestly, no small feat, because there was a lot of craziness. There still is a lot of toxic hustle, a lot of toxic hype. I hate all of that. But the part for me was, I'm not going to let this get in the way. I'm not going to let some inexperienced, hypey, crazy people, which you can find anywhere, get in the way of me finding something and being able to save other corporate women I'm not going to let it get in the way. And so I just decided I'm going to create something that corporate women can be proud to be a part of. And it honestly, like, the history wrote itself within 6 months from that decision. So I would say it was 18 months from when I signed up to when I actually got my first big check that was definitely demonstrated to me that if this kept up, I could replace the income that I was making from the business that took me 13 years to put together. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And I want more people to understand this business. And then I began to transition more from running my own business. And by the way, I got to very nearly the top of that company before they started changing all the numbers and everything. I literally was like, okay, I mean, still great money, all the things. But what became really clear to me was my passion was for helping other women who maybe got in under the wrong lineage, or maybe were in a company that like they didn't actually take the training seriously, or maybe they got in under hypey Hannah and it was like, ew, not going to do that. And I started to follow that passion. Now, I will also tell you that I made the classic bad decision of network marketing, which is the company starts to experience a little bit of trouble. And I think the whole thing is falling apart. And so I started to look elsewhere. And the elsewhere for me was I got a call from another network marketing company. And that network marketing company said, hey, we're looking for women to actually come in and teach our representatives how to do this business. Now, the business that I was in didn't have those people. They relied solely on the leaders in the field, which has its pluses and minuses. But I was like, oh, I didn't even know. I'm like, yes, of course. Now, I didn't end up getting that job, but it opened my eyes to the possibility that I could actually work for these companies and leverage my learning and development and sales experience and help create really insanely large communities of women that were having success doing it in a way that like corporate women would be proud of. Like, I rejected the scam and the spam and the hype mostly. I mean, I did go through a period where I said some things and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I said that. But anywho, we come to our senses. Anywho, so I began a career inside of these network marketing and direct sales companies, being like an executive in charge of their learning and development, being an executive in charge of their sales enablement, being an executive in charge of their sales strategy. My last job inside of a corporate network marketing company was the highest executive sales position and sales enablement position that you can have. And that brand at that time was almost $500 million. So like, I'm talking tens of thousands of people that I have been responsible for teaching how to be successful in network marketing. Now, I will tell you that in my network marketing career, I duplicated 3 leaders direct to me who all got to the level that I got to. So I knew how to do it. Not just that, but in my team, I had people ranking up consistently and regularly. So we had created a system. We had taken the system that the company, that the field had said, and I was still studying, trying to figure out like, okay, based on technology and all the things, because that was also part of my gifting, was like I came from a technology background, so I embraced the technology side of things. So I really think that helped me as I grew, have this scale. Like I was like, oh, okay, so I know how to run a business. I understand business because I've had my own businesses, which is key. You have to understand how businesses work. I understood sales because I've been doing it my entire life, and I understood how to grow a successful network marketing team, but also understood how to teach people what they needed to know. So that's me. That's where I am. I have left the company that I was with, and I have decided, you know what? My favorite part of this business is being able to help a broad group of women, because it is true. If you're in a business and your upline isn't active, or you're in a business and the company doesn't actually really have qualified salespeople, doesn't have qualified learning and development. And what I observed, honestly, is that so much of what women were being taught to do didn't work for women. Like it was kind of bro hype sales stuff. Like the last sales advice I remember somebody getting and telling me about was smile more, smile more, smile more, smile more. Girl, I didn't have the heart to tell her she made 3 times more than the person that told her to smile more. But when that's the kind of advice that women are getting in this network marketing space, I really felt called to start a community of people who are done with the toxic hustle, are done with the hype. They want a legitimate, savvy, and scalable business, and they want to bring in other people to do the same. So my name is Genevieve Skory. I have been where you are. I have been in all the stages of the business and inside of these network marketing companies. And what I do now with pleasure, and honestly, I consider it to be a privilege, is teach women how to simplify their business and work it not as a crazy work from home sales job, but a legitimate community experience where you bring in, because you're attracting really great business builders and leaders who want to help you do the same. And I will stand on this for the rest of my life. If I could do it skeptically, cranky, like total rejecting all the things, and busy beyond belief, if I can do it, I can teach you how to do it. I know I can. So be sure to hit the link below. Let's have a discussion, or just take yourself right over to my community and join up. There's something inside of there for you. Just take the business assessment. That is going to help you see where the gaps are in your business. And if you see that and think you'd like help executing those systems, implementing them for yourself, then book your call. Let's have a conversation, or just head on over to the school, sign yourself up. There's a free 7-day trial with every offer. That's my story, and I love it.